We believe that basically if you can have a positive effect on education, you can change the world.
This is the Student Leadership News Podcast.
Hello and welcome to the Student Leadership News Podcast. Wherever you're watching throughout our social media platforms, or if you're listening on any podcast platform, it's fantastic to have you with us. Now, my name is Ronan. You probably remember me from episodes past, but I'm really excited to be hosting this episode. It's a bit special. I have got a special guest co-host with me, a wonderful fellow named Sean Purcell from the Cotton On Foundation. Hi, Sean. How are you going?
G'day, Ronan. Thanks for having me.
No, great to have you with us. Now, Sean, we met probably 8 months ago.
Yep, that's
when
right.
we were both touring around as part of the Halogen Australia National Young Leaders Days.
That's the one.
Playing a supporting role behind the scenes.
Yep.
And you were like the man that was making it happen with the contribution from the Cotton On Foundation. Now, I know about the Cotton On Foundation because I knew about the clothing brand. Like, I've been walking past the stores, buying bits and pieces for years and years.
Yep.
And it was when I heard about Cotton On Foundation through the National Young Leaders Day that I really started to listen up to what the foundation was all about.
Yep.
Give us a bit of an overview about what the foundation does.
Well, the Cotton On Foundation is the heart and soul of the Cotton On Group. So we've got a number of different brands like Typo, Supre, Cotton On Body, Cotton On Kids. But right at the heart of that is our philanthropic arm. So we basically, you know, when you rock up and you buy a t-shirt or your hoodie, the girl or the guy at the counter should say, hey, do you want to buy a bottle of water with that or a tote bag?
Yeah, that happened when I went there. They asked me if I wanted to buy mints, I think.
Yeah, loving. That's fantastic. Well, off the back of that, 100% of the proceeds from that item that you buy go back to the Cotton On Foundation, where we can use that to have positive influence in communities all over the globe that's in developing nations, basically.
Yeah, fantastic. So, some of the countries where the projects take place, where this money is used, what are some of those countries?
So we kicked off about 10 years ago in Uganda, southern Uganda specifically, and now operate in South Africa, Thailand, and we've even got a project in the Northern Territory here in Australia.
And my understanding is most of what takes place is based around a school in these places. Is that right?
That's it, yeah. So let's take that first project in Manya, for instance. So you start with the school, and we believe that basically if you can have a positive effect on education, you can change the world. So if every kid has access to quality education, then we change the world. So we start at the school, and then you start pulling it apart and you see things like meals and food and quality water need to be updated and looked at. And then we start looking at the hospital facilities and what can we do for the parents in those communities. And I'm sure you're getting the picture here. We just start spreading away from that school in every community to ensure that we build sustainable change in that community and down the track with the hope that community can look after itself and go on to help other communities in the region.
Now, I want to pick your brain throughout this episode and draw out some things that student leaders far and wide in primary schools and high schools around Australia, New Zealand, other places, things that student leaders can learn based on what the Cotton On Foundation is doing. Because what I love is Cotton On Foundation comes from a clothing brand and shoes and all the accessories, but then said, we're bigger than this, we can do something for others. And I think schools can relate to that because schools, first and foremost, is a place to go and education and learning and examinations and assessments and all this. But student leaders then say, actually, we want to do more than this. What can we do? So it's like such a massive add-on in many schools that students want to change the world. Cotton On has worked out a way of doing this through the foundation. So I'm going to ask you for some of the things that might happen behind the scenes, some of the thinking, the way things work, so that student leaders can perhaps take some lessons and play their part in the world as well. So can we launch into a few of our segments?
Let's do it. Sounds fantastic.
First segment, here we go.
3, 2, 1.
Top 3.
Okay, Sean, for this segment, the top 3, I really want to draw the attention of everyone who's watching and listening to what took place at the recent National Young Leaders Days around Australia. And after the presentations from, Tim Diamond, Jade Slater, others from the Cotton On Foundation, students were invited, if they wanted to go make a purchase of an Empower band. Yeah?
That's it, yeah.
Yeah, and those Empower bands were sold for how much?
They were $2 a pop.
$2.
Yep.
And there are a couple of other like water bottles and tote bags as well,
yeah.
right?
We got all of our latest updates products from put together by Jade Slater and our team, and sold them at every station around the country.
And overall, throughout the series of events, $10,000 was raised.
That's right.
Yeah, and all of that $10,000 goes towards the Cotton On Foundation projects.
That's right.
And I think what's super cool is that Cotton On Foundation are throwing it open to people who have been part of the National Young Leaders Days and audience of this podcast to help make a decision as to what that money can go towards. Because $10,000, I assume, can go a long way.
$10,000 goes a long way in the communities that we work in. And the idea came from Ronan, the fact that we called them Empower Bands, and they were sold at the Empower station. And we wanted to empower those students to have some decision-making when it came to spending that money as well. So I thought it was a cracking idea.
Good. So right here, right now, can you please outline for us the 3 options that this $10,000 could go towards? And no joke, we want people who are watching this podcast, listening to this podcast, to get onto our social media channels to add their perspective or their point of view as to which of these 3 they think would be a wonderful cause. Now, I know what they are, and I find it hard because they're 3 very good causes.
Absolutely.
But I think it's helpful for people to think about where money goes. So we're going to have the option right now to have a say towards where the $10,000 can go towards. That's right.
I love that.
Okay, so people have got 2 weeks to make a decision and put their comment on our social media channels about this. Can you please tell us the 3 things the $10,000 could go towards?
I would love to. So option number 1 is a rhino tank that holds, I think it's 10,000 litres of water.
It's massive
at
water
a school.
tank.
Huge water tanks, produced and developed right here in Australia in a sleepy little town called Perth. I don't know if you've heard of it or not.
Hometown to me. Shout out to Perth.
Big ups for Perth. The next option is 42,000 meals.
Wow.
So think that through. 42,000 meals in one of our schools. That's a lot of fed students.
Would it be accurate for me to say that many of the students that are part of the schools don't have nutritional meals at home, and families would struggle to provide these meals ordinarily?
Yeah, that's correct. It's it's a lot of these kids rely on the 2 to 3 meals a day that they get at one of our schools. In those communities to get them through. So
$10,000 could go towards 42,000 meals.
Yeah, which is
That's
lot
good value.
of meals. Yeah,
you don't get that value at McDonald's.
No, exactly not.
Third option?
Exactly. Third option is 1 year's worth of health services for young mums in one of our hospitals. So again, absolutely essential. And it stretches a long way, that $10,000, and we're talking about these beautiful little babies coming into the world and receiving the very best health care they possibly can in these communities. So some brilliant options there, mate.
So well done to the Cotton On Foundation for making that fundraising possible, working with Halogen and everybody at National Young Leaders Day who purchased a $2 item.
Absolutely.
Now they know where it's possibly going to go towards.
Yep.
So 2 weeks from the launch of this episode, get on social media, tell us where you think the money should go towards, and then we'll pass that info back to you, Sean, and we'll hear about what happens with it.
Thanks, guys. I can't wait.
Okay,
can't wait to see what happens there.
Love that segment. Let's get straight into the next one.
BLT, Best Leadership Tip.
Okay, Sean, this segment, Best Leadership Tip, we affectionately call it BLT.
Love it.
We often end up talking about everyone's favourite sandwich, although you don't eat bacon, you don't eat meat, right?
I don't eat any meat.
So what's your favourite sandwich then, if it's not BLT?
I just like salad sandwiches, Ronan.
Salad sandwiches.
What's wrong with salad sandwiches?
Nothing wrong with salad sandwiches.
Keep me strong.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of meat supplements out there these days that I tipple with.
So you can have
bit.
It is possible to have a pretend BLT.
It really is, and you can have vegan nuggets, which are absolutely delicious. So we're going to take over the world one day.
Yeah,
us vegans.
So on topic, BLT does stand for Best Leadership Tip.
Great.
And in this segment, we like to give a golden nugget. You just mentioned nugget, but a golden nugget.
So you're not going to force feed me meat?
Not meat nuggets. We're going to go with leadership nugget right now.
Got it.
One of the things that I think the Cotton On Foundation does well is shares the stories of where the fundraising goes.
Yes.
And I think in so many schools, and student leaders who listen to this will be relating to it,
Yep.
student leaders go about their school doing fundraising projects, asking people to donate money, having free clothes days where you don't need to wear uniform and you donate money, and the student leaders collect this money,
Yep.
and then others complain that they don't know where this money goes to. So I think student leaders would do so much better in their fundraising effort if they shared stories of what actually happens with money that's fundraised in schools.
Yep.
Now, what are some of the ways that Cotton On shares the stories of where the millions of dollars go? How does that get shared?
Well, you're spot on. Sharing the story is imperative because if you don't share that impact of that dollar, especially when it's a quality impact and the majority of the money raised is going to that impact, you're not going to encourage people to keep investing in your product, basically. So we take it very seriously. We've got a team at our head office in North Geelong that look after our social media exclusively. So Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, all of the major platforms, as well as YouTube, and the thing that sits above it all is our website, which is full of quality content and up-to-date content on every one of the projects that we have all around the world, and the impact that we're having in those specific regions.
And in the shop too, I'm sure I've seen at the cash register little photos that have the updates and things.
Yeah, absolutely. So we've got obviously, and that's those 22,000 staff that we've got globally that sell you your hoodie or sell you your T-shirt. They're our frontline advocates. So they're the ones that are essentially telling the story of the foundation every time they offer a water bottle to you or a tote bag. They're the ones that are basically propping up the income for the projects that we do on the ground. So they're imperative. And we have the little TVs to help them out at your point of sale and all that sort of stuff too, which is really, really cool.
Yeah. So I just think for student leaders, they might not be able to fundraise millions of dollars, and that's okay. They may not have their own projects that they run in other parts of the world, but I'm sure student leaders would benefit from telling the story, finding out where their money goes that they donate to whatever cause it is, telling that story and letting others be encouraged to further be part of that story, right?
Absolutely, and there's a lot of fun in that too, Ronan. Get creative. If you've got something to say, shout it. And I think there's nothing bad comes from sharing your story and sharing your impact and standing up and letting people know that what you want to do and what you're achieving as well. So
good stuff. Okay, best leadership tip without the bacon. Love it. So let's go to our next segment.
My favourite idea.
Okay, this segment, my favourite idea. We like to take something that we've seen or we've noticed and really highlight that for others to know about. I want to draw our podcast listeners and audience to the attention that what I love about what Cotton On does with their fundraising is they're not just asking people to put money into a money tin. I mean, there's many charities that do that and they make it work for them, and that's great. But I think sometimes people can feel that happens a bit too much. What I love about what Cotton On Foundation does, my favourite part of the idea, is selling everyday items that people would already be buying. So even without having to say like an unknown percentage of your hoodie or T-shirt goes to the foundation, instead they say the entire profits of everyday items that you can buy for a few dollars each, that goes towards the foundation. What are some of those items, if I was to walk into a Cotton On store, those everyday items that I could buy knowing where the profits go?
Yeah, great question and really, really good point. I think, there becomes this phenomenon called charity fatigue where people get sick of giving money away. And if the economy dries up, then it's sort of the last place that money goes. So you really do have to create product that people actually want, and they are happy to post on social and tag you in and stuff like that. And again, we're really lucky. We've got an incredible team at the foundation that have amazing know-how when it comes to products and products that people want that are at a price point that everyone can afford. So $2, $3, tops $5 basically per item. And we're talking about items like, first of all, a bottle of water. And we're working really hard on eco bottles of water that are plant-based at the moment, which is an Australian first.
What do you mean plant-based?
They're made out of plants.
The bottles
are made out of bottles. Wow. You drink the water and you throw it in the compost instead of the recycling. So initiatives like that absolutely brilliant. Blow me away every day when I see it. Tote bags, and we work really closely with licensing groups like Walt Disney and all those sort of chains to ensure that they're the funkiest tote bags you can get out there. And again, that's something you can use over and over again.
How much tote bag cost?
$2 for a tote bag. You'll be the coolest looking kid at Coles or Woolies. And then things like mints and even sometimes lip glosses and stuff like that as well. All stuff that, like we said, you really want to stick in your handbag or your backpack on the way out. And that, like we talked about before with that storytelling, 100% of the proceeds that you're tipping in are going to the projects. And you can see how that money's being actioned on the ground. Yeah.
And I think, like, the average student leader is going to find it too daunting and, in fact, impossible to go to Walt Disney Corporation and say, can we come up with an arrangement with you to sell your things? But there are things that the students in their school are already spending money on that if the student leaders were using those things for sale as a fundraising campaign would be far more effective than selling raffle tickets. Like the average teenager, primary school student, high school student is not spending their pocket money on raffle tickets probably. So it's not going to be an effective fundraiser when the student leaders run a raffle, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, so if we can, like what I really can learn from this idea is find things. Maybe students need to do a survey. What are the things that students in their school spend money on anyway with their pocket money, shops on the weekends? And then student leaders find, cool, how do we build a fundraising campaign around those things? I think that could go a long way.
Absolutely, and that's the beauty of corporate social responsibility. A lot of bigger companies are thinking about it now. So what can we do to leverage off our skill set, what we do really well, to benefit the people, the people using the product, but also the recipients of the money that we make. So it's incredibly important. And again, it stimulates your creativity as a young student. What am I good at? And how can I use that, leverage off that skill set to actually help those in need, whether it's someone on the other side of the world or someone in your own community, whether it's homelessness or animal shelters, it doesn't matter. If you find a way of leveraging off your skill set and not following the status quo when it comes to charity, you're going to enjoy it more. And B, you're probably going to be a lot more successful in raising that money.
And that kind of idea is why it's my favourite idea. But Sean, we are drawing to an end of this episode. Thanks so much for joining us for this episode.
Thanks very much for having me, Ronan. Loved it.
My real hope is that our audience are able to understand that some of the things that Cotton On Foundation is doing on a global scale actually can be implemented on a school level to impact the many causes that students would be passionate about.
Absolutely.
And as we finish this episode, we're going to actually play a small excerpt, a 1 minute wisdom segment, as we often do on these podcasts. And the 1 minute wisdom is going to be from Tim Diamond at the National Young Leaders Day. You're the best person to tell us who Tim Diamond is for anyone that wasn't there.
Yeah, wisdom is a great segue, mate, because some of the words that Tim has are based on his work at the foundation. So he's a general manager of the Cotton On Foundation and he's charge of projects globally. And basically, Tim's been heading up the foundation for the entirety of its 10 years and founded it with Nigel Austin, the boss of the whole Cotton On group. So he's overseen some amazing changes, amazing projects, and coming close to, under his reign, raising $90 million so far from the sale of water bottles. So I hope the kids enjoy this 1 minute wisdom from Tim.
There'll have to be some wisdom here. So here we go. Well, thanks to our listening audience. Whether you're watching on social media, whether you're listening on your podcast app, we hope you've enjoyed this episode. Big thanks to Sean, the Cotton On Foundation, and want to head out with our 1 minute wisdom from Tim Diamond.
1 minute wisdom, direct from the National Young Leaders Day.
Now, what is it that you are passionate about? What is it that you are passionate about? What gets that burning desire in your guts? And then what do you need to do to make it happen? Think about that. What do you need to do to make it happen? And then what's stopping you? What are those barriers that are being put up to stop you from pursuing your passion? And it's very similar to the previous speakers today. Passion, break down the barriers, and drive forward. And so without you guys, again, as I mentioned before, the Cotton On Foundation wouldn't be what it is today. But the inspiring thing is, I look around this room and I see future leaders, future change makers. So for me, thank you. I really do appreciate your time and just being able to share a little bit about the story of Cotton On Foundation.
Thanks for listening to the Student Leadership News Podcast. Interact with us on social media and follow the news online at studentleadership.news.